One of the most common maintenance tasks on any electric bike is replacing the brake pads. In this tutorial, I'll show you when it's necessary and how you can easily change them yourself. The first step is to find out if your e-bike brake pads really need to be replaced. To do this, you have to remove the front or rear wheel, and then you can already take a close look at the brake pads. If the brake pads are already quite worn down, it's time to fit a fresh set of pads. To be on the safe side, you can also remove the brake pads and take a close look at their condition. Sometimes, if the brake caliper isn't mounted perfectly straight, the pads can wear at an angle. Something you might not notice from the outside at first glance. Reduced braking power, a spongy lever feel, or even a metallic squealing noise when braking are further signs that your braking system needs a bit of attention. One important note before we get started with the actual work: if you've removed your front or rear wheel, never pull the brake lever. Otherwise, you'll push the pistons out of the caliper and end up with far more work than necessary. But before you pick up any tools, you'll first need to make sure you have the correct replacement parts ready. Here you're spoiled for choice, because alongside the original pads from Shimano, Magura or SRAM, there are countless other manufacturers offering high-quality brake pads for every type of riding and weather condition. The best thing to do is simply test what works best for you and your riding style. When it comes to the material, there are two main types. Metallic brake pads generally offer better braking performance once they're warmed up, and they also tend to wear more slowly. However, they can cause increased wear on your rotor, and as mentioned before, they really need to be properly warmed up to deliver their full braking performance. For occasional riders in flat city areas, organic pads with a resin compound are usually the better choice. They can be used with virtually all brake rotors and offer strong braking performance even when they're not warmed up. However, they do tend to wear out a bit faster. So, when buying new ones, you need to pay attention to two things. Do the brake pads fit your installed brakes? Check whether your brake system uses a 2 or a 4 piston caliper and confirm which specific model you have. Also ensure that the brake pad type fits both your rotor and your riding style. To change the brake pads on your e-bike now, first remove your old pads. Remove the wheel to do this, if you haven't already. You unlock the pad using a small safety pin, or on some models a small screw. When working with screw-in safeties, make sure to check whether there's an additional locking pin at the end of the screw. For the pin, you might need to pull hard with pliers because they're bent on the other side of the brake and you have to straighten them first. Now you can remove the old pads along with the metallic spring clip. If you'd like to take the opportunity to clean your brake, it's best to use only a bit of water or some isopropyl alcohol. Never use automotive brake cleaner on the rotor. That kind of product is meant for cars and will only cause more trouble than it helps on a bike. Also make sure not to touch any of the braking surfaces and avoid handling the new brake pads with your fingers. Before fitting the new pads, you may need to push the brake pistons back into place. This is really easy to do using a simple tire lever. Never use a metal screwdriver for this, as it usually doesn't work well and can easily cause damage. For beginners, it's often best to use a brake piston reset tool. You simply place it between the brake pads, squeeze it together, and the job is done. This is especially useful when you're dealing with delicate ceramic pistons, as you're far less likely to damage anything. On many brake systems, this even works while everything is still installed, or you can loosen the caliper once to push everything back more easily. However, before pushing the pistons back, you should always open the reservoir cap on your brake lever to avoid any damage. If a bit of brake fluid spills out at the lever, simply wipe it off with some water. Now you can go ahead and install the new pads along with the new spring. To do this, first place the pad into the clip, squeeze it slightly and slide it into the brake. Once everything is in the correct position, the pads should stay in place on their own. Then just secure everything with the retaining pin or the screw. If you're using a pin, bend it on the back so it can't fall out. Now you can put the wheel back on and do an initial function test. When reinstalling the wheel, I recommend taking the bike off the stand so the wheel can sit properly in the frame and press firmly onto the ground. Once it's correctly aligned, tighten the through axle, or in our case, the quick release. It's not uncommon to have to readjust the brake now because it's rubbing. In this case, I recommend placing this small alignment plate on the brake rotor, loosening the mounting caliper, and then subsequently carefully pulling the brake rotor and the tool into the caliper. Now pull the brake lever firmly, and then the caliper should automatically align itself into the correct position. While holding the brake, tighten the screws on the brake caliper. The final step is to take it for a short test ride. But before you set off, while still stationary, check the bite point to see if it's there. You might need to pump the lever a few times to get the brake working properly again. During the test ride, accelerate a few times and brake down to a moderate speed first. Then brake from about 30 down to 15 km per hour around 15 times. Then accelerate again to 30 or 25 km per hour and brake hard to a full stop. Also follow the specific manufacturer's recommendations. They always vary a little bit. This gets your pads up to temperature and beds them in properly. Sometimes you'll need to tweak the brake once more to stop any rubbing, but after that you're good to go again for your next rides. You can find all the tools and the right pads for your brakes in our shop, of course. Feel free to take a look if you need anything and support our channel a bit. We'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. And if you still have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm always happy to help. Have fun wrenching and then enjoy getting back out on your e-bike.